To begin with, we will analyze simple exercises that can be performed at any time of the day. If you work in an office, for example, it will be great to do them during a break or to distract yourself. The exercises for setting the hand are quite simple. They need to be performed in large numbers to hone the skill. No matter what people say, practice is much better than theory. After all, in practice, you consolidate the acquired knowledge. I will use HB or B pencils for it. It's important that the pencil is not too soft. The very first exercise will be the simplest and perhaps even banal for someone. We will draw straight lines. Let's start with horizontal ones and then move on to the vertical ones. To do this, we have the sheet. In this case, I will not attach it because it's quite fast work. But if you want, you can do it. Look, you place the sheet vertically and then start drawing horizontal lines. For example, at the beginning of the sheet, on the left, you make a certain spot, and then from it you start to lead a straight line to the right. Then you try to do all the following lines in parallel with the previous ones. That's the way it is. Of course, it may not work out at the beginning. To become a professional in this business, you need to get a good workout at the beginning. Even if the lines are not always perfectly smooth, it's not scary. The line itself can be more lively and smooth. Some microscopic curvature is possible. However, of course, if you have a line dancing like this on the sheet, this is not exactly what we need. Therefore, this exercise is designed to teach you how to freely draw straight lines by hand. It's important to remember that each line you draw should be parallel to the horizontal of the sheet. Then, the second point, the distance between the line should be almost the same. I advise leaving more air between the lines at the beginning to simplify the task. The distance should be at least 1 centimeter. This is all important to consider. If the first lines come out very crookedly, step back down a little and start the exercise again, focusing on aligning each line with the horizon of the sheet. Ideally, each subsequent line should be smoother and clearer than the previous one. The technique of the exercise is to find a middle ground between relaxing the arm and squeezing it. Hold the pencil as you used to do it. If the exercise is performed by a child, let him do it the way he feels and do not retrain him. I know a lot of talented students who may not be able to hold a pencil in an accepted classical way, but they make very beautiful drawings. The result is not affected by the strong position of the hand in any way. The main thing is that you feel comfortable. It's better just to fix the hand correctly so that it can remember this direction. This exercise strengthens the arm. It becomes more mobile, plastic, and at the same time very accurate. The hand begins to feel the pressure of the pencil more, the location of the sheet, the direction of the line, and so on. A little later, we will perform one exercise for the brain, which will prove that drawing with perfectly straight lines does not depend on your creative talent in any way. This is a normal automatic action for which the brain is responsible. Thanks to all these exercises, in the future it will be much easier for you to depict everything you want without correcting it many times. When you draw a line, it's important to maintain fixation and a slight tension of the arm along the entire length of the segment. If you want, before you start, you can practice this hand movement in the air so that the hand remembers this maneuver. Maximum concentration is also very important here. This exercise also perfectly harmonizes the hemispheres of the brain. This is especially useful if your work is related to calculations and logistics, because in this case, you feed your logical and mental part of the brain all the time. Our goal here is to engage the right hemisphere of the brain, which is responsible for creativity. Even in life, after drawing, you will begin to feel everything more. The horizon of your ideas will become even wider, and in general, a certain harmonious state will appear. For example, those people who write left-handed are always more creative and proactive, and right-handed people are more logical and pragmatic. But of course, we can be in complete harmony and balance not depending on which hand we write with. Despite all this, remember that success does not come because you are gifted or talented, but because you work hard and do not give up your favorite thing at the first difficulty. Ordinary talent is only 1% out of 100. Everything else is practice. We can observe a similar analogy when learning languages. It almost always takes constant practice and perseverance. You also don't need to try to determine the level of your potential or talent. The very presence of a sincere desire and zeal to learn how to draw is a talent in itself. All you need to do is just develop your desire and follow it. So, actually, let's go back to our exercises. They are quite effective for all those who are just starting training. So you will get a real result only if you go into the process with a high degree of concentration. In addition, the more you concentrate, the more you let go of all the current problems in your life, which can be very useful too. Ideally, the exercise should be performed at least 10 times. The more, the better. If you have understood the approach correctly, you should succeed. And even if it's not, just keep going. Over time, you will see the result and will be very pleased with your perseverance. I remind you that we are bringing all the line to the end. You can do the same on the other side of the sheet. For your understanding, when my teacher gave me this task at first, I completed it at least 20 times before actually seeing the result. All the lines had to be perfectly smooth and clear like a ruler. But it's forbidden to use the ruler only if you are not engaged in designing cars or buildings. Our goal is to achieve a straight line by hand. The second exercise will be a bit like the first. Now I ask you to draw vertical lines, leaving the sheet in the same position as in the first exercise. We draw the lines from top to bottom, not vice versa. You also fix the hand. Choose the distance between the lines and lower it down. Perhaps this option will be easier for you since here your hand is relaxed going down. It's important to maintain a smooth or dragging movement. Here, as you probably already noticed, we work from different angles. A little later, for example, we will draw diagonal lines, and so on. I advise you to not draw vertical lines on the previous horizontal ones. It's better to take a separate blank list, since the grid effect may confuse you a bit. Also, absolutely any drawing sheet, even thinner, is suitable for such exercises. These basic exercises are always given to beginners. Work them out several times before continuing. And now, if everything is clear with the previous exercises, we go further. As always, we keep the sheet in an upright position and make sure that it does not fidget much on the table. This exercise consists in connecting two different points. You place 2 points on different edges of the sheet. We will start with the horizontal lines. Your task is to connect both points with a straight line from the first time. You draw a line from left to right, continuously and quickly. To help you in this task, I advise you to always pay attention to the second point where you want to bring your line. In this way, we deceive our brain and do not let it control us in the process. It's very important. After all, initially, it seems to us that only if we control the process, we will come to the desired result. When we draw, most of the process is always controlled by the mind, which is not very correct, because creativity should not be connected with logic. Sometimes this creates unnecessary tension. When you are drawing a line, do it quickly and confidently. If you delay too much, you will most likely make a mistake. And remember that you always need to look at the second point. You can start with the shorter segments and then gradually expand the distance. Try to place the points in parallel in the same way to achieve a more correct result. The first task is to connect a point to a point, and the second task is to make your line perfectly smooth. You can arrange a lot of such segments on your list and then connect them. This exercise is considered preparatory before studying perspective. Next, we take a new sheet and do the same thing but with vertical lines. I will leave my current sheet. The principle is the same here. We look at the second point when we draw a line. It's important not to simplify the task for yourself and to not put a second point at the end of the segment. You first create 2 separate points on the same axis and then connect them. If you do it differently, there will be no benefit from the exercise. Here, you are also trying to gradually lengthen the segments by placing your points at opposite edges of the sheet. Keep in mind also that the line should fall into the very center of the point. And the last exercise is probably the most favorite of all my students. This is a connection of randomly located points on the surface of the sheet. Visually, it may resemble a constellation at the end. In this exercise, our hand learns to perform various complex and unusual movements for it. Here, we will use all possible angles. To begin with, you take a blank sheet again and put points all over the sheet without any logic. There should be a lot of points. They should completely fill the sheet. And then, as always, we connect them, trying to work from different angles and connect the most distant points. Ideally, several segments should come out of each point. Therefore, you connect them all several times. Do not take the closest segments, otherwise it will greatly simplify the task and will not train your hand in any way. Let your hand feel all directions. If some angles is more difficult, work on it a little more. We also draw lines here quickly. You will most likely miss if you work slowly. Try not to treat this exercise negligently. Observe the straightness of the lines and be concentrated throughout the whole process. This exercise is important. In the future, you will feel its effect. So, in total, we have completed 3 exercises. In the first one, we draw straight lines to the beginning of the end of the sheet using one direction and distance. In the second, we connected points with points. And in the latter, we connected the points working from different angles. I remind you that during the whole process, we do not use a ruler in any case. We learn to draw lines by hand to make them lively, easy, and accurate. Believe me, when you learn how to draw beautiful lines, you will never remember that there is a ruler. All professional artists always draw everything by hand, even when they are constructing very complex geometric shapes. That's what we are going to in the learning process.